I think we had a terrific day out on Spark Street. I was really, really happy to see representation from across the supply chain, from the critical minerals community, from the battery community, from the battery materials community, from the vehicle manufacturing community, and that's all sorts of vehicles, right? That's passenger vehicles and heavy duty and off-road vehicles. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank the collaborators for this event. That's EMC, that's GAC, that's BMAC, that's C2M2A, and that's MAC. Without your collaboration and your help, this couldn't have happened. So thank you very much for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a couple of people who are going to come up. And we're going to do a little bit of an announcement, and then we're going to do a bit of a show and tell. And after that, we're going to have a short panel to talk about the future of the supply chain and the future of this industry. We're going to bring members or representation from our collaborators up, and we're going to have a conversation. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the amazing and mighty team at Accelerate who put this together today and tonight and tomorrow as well. They have worked long and hard, and they still are, because some of them are not here because they're setting down on Spark Street. But they did an amazing job, so thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, absolutely. So I am now going to invite Julie Dabrusin up to the stage. Julie is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources and to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and the MP for Toronto Danforth. And I'm also going to invite Mo Cabrera to come up a little bit closer, because Mo is going to follow Julie and talk about and elaborate on an announcement that is about to be made. I want to thank Enercan in advance, because without Enercan's support, none of what Julie and Mo are going to talk about is possible. And it's a really important project, and we hope that you take note of it and that you help along the way. Without further ado, I'm going to invite Julie up. Thank you very much.
So, good evening, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. Just to start, I'd like to begin by recognizing that we are on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, and that it's important at all times, but perhaps even more so as we lead into September 30th, for us to acknowledge the traditional lands we're on and the history of our country and the path that we can make going forward, which I believe we're in a good way, in a good path, but it's important to remember that. So it was really lovely to see, first of all of you out on Spark Street. I was wandering down the street, saw a lot of interest and a lot of excitement, and it was nice to see that. It's really important when we're thinking about it, all the work that you're doing, because around the world, countries are in a global race to establish clean economies of the 21st century. Canada's no exception. L'objectif du gouvernement fédéral est clair. Nous travaillons à arrache-pied pour créer une économie nette, zéro, qui non seulement offrira des possibilités d'emploi durables aux Canadiens, mais qui protégera également notre environnement pour les générations futures. Et nous continuerons à le faire par le biais d'une variété de programmes, d'initiatives, de règlements et de crédits d'impôt fédéral. Rest assured, we're just getting started. And I love this because speechwriters love puns whenever we're talking about zero-emission vehicles. So our foot is on the accelerator. Yeah. Transportation is a key focus of our plan, and it has to be, because transportation sector accounts for about a quarter of Canada's emissions. That's why we've set ambitious goals. By 2035, all new passenger vehicles sold in Canada will be zero emission. And by 2040, 100% of medium and heavy duty vehicles sold will be zero emission vehicles when feasible. So to support the transition to electric vehicles, we've been investing in rebates for Canadians of up to $5,000 for the purchase of new electric or other alternative fuel vehicles, as well as an immediate 100% write-down for businesses buying these vehicles. We've also been helping to expand the national network of charging infrastructure for zero-emission vehicles in all of our communities where we live, work, and play. So that's, if you're in a city, for example, especially at multi-residential complexes, alongside, on-street parking, in public places, and at facilities where light-duty fleets are serviced. In support of our goal to add nearly 85,000 zero-emission vehicle chargers to Canada's network, the federal government is investing to deploy more chargers where it's most needed. And make no mistake, you all know this in this room, EVs will become the norm eventually, but there's still more to do before we get there. We have to start, keep doing exactly what you were doing today about spreading the good news about EVs. Owning them is more environmentally sustainable, more affordable, and more reliable in the long run. It's no small task, but we can do it one investment, one project, one innovation at a time. And in addition to what I was talking to you about the rebates, our government has also invested through the Canada Infrastructure Bank to invest in large-scale projects that are both revenue-generating and in the public interest. In fact, we've been seeing that expand the EV charging network across our country as well. So far, there's nearly 260,000 incentives to buy or lease a zero-emission vehicle that have been provided to Canadians and Canadian businesses. Nous avons également lancé l'appel à propositions pour la décarbonisation des transports routiers afin d'encourager les innovateurs canadiens à demander le financement de projets qui améliorent l'efficacité de notre système de transport en mettant plus de véhicules à zéro émission sur les routes. L'été dernier, nous avons annoncé un investissement fédéral de 30 millions de dollars pour la mise en place de plus de 1500 nouveaux chargeurs de véhicules électriques dans la ville de Québec et dans tout le Québec. But it goes beyond personal EVs. Just last week, this is a part that I really like because I'm a big person on cycling. Just last week, we announced $220,000 in investments towards e-bikes and biking infrastructure in British Columbia. It's an entire network that we're building out together. Earlier this year, we also announced funding for the purchase of 350 zero-emission buses for the City of Ottawa. That's exciting when you look at it because for a little while, the City of Toronto had the most electric buses on the road. I believe that Edmonton has now beat us, but I love that there's a competition between cities across our country to get there. Shows we're on the right path. Et tandis que nous développons cette infrastructure et que nous mettons plus de Canadiens sur la route dans des véhicules électriques, nous nous concentrons également sur la croissance des éléments constitutifs de l'économie verte et numérique, les minéraux critiques. En termes simples, la transition énergétique a besoin de minéraux essentiels pour les batteries, pour les voitures électriques, pour les éoliennes et les panneaux solaires. Le Canada est déjà un producteur mondial de bon nombre de ces ressources et nous avons la capacité d'en produire beaucoup plus. Nous sommes l'un des rares pays occidentaux à posséder des gisements importants de tous les minéraux nécessaires à la fabrication de batteries pour les véhicules électriques. We have a world-class battery research community with companies like Nano One Materials, Ecology Solutions, Lithium Technologies, Electrovia Inc., and Novonix. I believe I've seen some of you here today. And I understand that some of these and other industry leaders are just, part of the forefront of what we can see for our country. We also have a rapidly electrifying automotive industry making big waves, like our partners at Lion Electric, who I was talking with also a little bit earlier today. These industries are attracting investment from around the world and helping Canada build international partnerships. It's an example when you see Germany's BASF committing to build an electric vehicle battery materials plant in Quebec. This is a good example. So is Ford's new facility in Bécancour. And just this past spring, Volkswagen announced plans to establish an electric vehicle battery manufacturing facility right here in Ontario. Last week, Yasutoshi Nishimura, the Japanese Minister of Economic Trade and Industry, met with federal ministers and signed a memorandum of cooperation with Canada on battery supply chains. Supply chains that, as the world moves rapidly towards electrification, will be needed to get more EVs on our roads. And Canada is advancing global alignment on sustainable and socially responsible mining practices in this space, launching the Sustainable Critical Minerals Alliance at COP15. I have to say, I have to underline that. I was talking with some people from the EU yesterday, and they were really underlining how important that was to them to know that we are mining in a sustainable way. That it's important as part of the entire continuum of the work that we're doing. The James Bay lithium mine in northern Quebec exemplifies our commitment, driving EV and battery manufacturing forward with sustainability and Indigenous consultations is top of mind. And to ensure our competitiveness while remaining in line with Canadian and international climate and nature protection objectives, the federal government has committed to implement a critical mineral strategy, which sets out the course for Canada to become a global supplier of choice for critical minerals and clean digital technologies they enable, including electric vehicles. The strategy sets a stage across the country for job creation, economic growth, the advancement of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and close cooperation with Canada's allies. That brings me to today, because I was the announcement part of the day. I'm pleased to announce $500,000 in federal investments to Accelerate Alliance, who are charting Canada's path forward in sustainable domestic battery innovation. Permettez-moi de répéter en français que j'ai le plaisir d'annoncer un investissement fédéral de $500 000 à Accelerate Alliance, qui trace la voie à suivre au Canada en matière d'innovation durable et nationale dans le domaine des batteries. That was like, thanks. I love it when I see the high fives part of it. This is funded through our Energy Innovation Program, and Accelerate Alliance is building a roadmap to help Canada meet its climate change targets and build low-emissions energy future by supporting Canada's battery innovators. By investing in tools like this, the Government of Canada is backing science-based decision-making and supporting movers in the battery industry who are actively creating pathways to achieve a net zero economy. So I want to congratulate Accelerate Alliance for your vision, your collaboration, for being strong partners on a project like this. I also want to thank all of you here today, because all of you are part of this exciting future, creating strong jobs and strong economy that we know we can build right here in our country. So thank you, and I'm going to pass it along to Mo.
So we can start by talking really about batteries. We've been talking about batteries for several years now, and the battery innovation roadmap really is trying to define what does it mean for Canada to be a global battery innovator in this space. And really, if we look at the history of Canada's battery innovation, we've actually had some major contributions. You know, this battery that's in all of our phones, which actually mine is at 2%, so we need to do some innovation there to help. But we've made some major contributions on some of the major kind of battery chemistries that are used today. So it's LFP and NMC. And we've also had a company in Canada since the 70s that was the first company that actually commercialized the first lithium rechargeable battery in the world in 1988. So this is not new for us. We've been contributing to this global solution to climate change for decades. And what we wanted to do with this project is to work with members, partners, industry stakeholders to build a battery innovation roadmap that is really aimed at creating a shared vision of success for Canada and defining the strategies, the objectives, the pathways, the timelines that really we need to get to in order to capture this opportunity in battery innovation and build on the historic contributions that we've had. So the first question really is, why batteries? Like, why are they important? And if we look at all of the studies that model out net zero, how are we gonna stop climate change or mitigate the basically the worst outcomes of climate change? Electrification is one of the key pathways or core pillars for decarbonizing societies across the world, right? So now that we've acknowledged electrification is the way to go, well, really we need to to be able to move energy around. We need to be able to integrate more renewables, and we need to be able to decarbonize things like vehicles and transport that require basically batteries. So it's really batteries are at the core. They underpin this electrification strategy, and it's for things like light-duty vehicles, medium and heavy-duty vehicles, off-road vehicles, but it's also for things like medium and heavy, like stationary storage, as you can see on the graph here by Bloomberg. And you can see here that the battery demand in the world is going to expand, by 10x over the next 10 to 12 years. So we're really going through a major pivot point right now, or like a pivotal point where we're looking at, what is the current demand and the current capacity that we have, and where do we need to get to? And Canada has started to play a key role in that over the last few years with the announcements that we've seen on battery capacity, on cathode material, as the Parliamentary Secretary talked about in her announcements. But now the step is, what are we doing on the innovation side? And we have more than 100 organizations, institutions, academics that are actually working on world-class battery innovation. And this roadmap is really focused on trying to take that and integrate it into this global battery industry and the battery market. So basically the question that then becomes, why do we actually need new batteries? Why do we need to innovate on batteries? And the thing is that if there were no problems, we would not basically go back to the drawing board and we just kind of use the batteries that we have. But my 2% battery on my phone is kind of an example of things that consumers want that actually is forcing us back to the drawing board. So that's like sort of market applications. We want cheaper batteries so we can have cheaper electric vehicles so that we can make electric vehicles more affordable for mass adoption. We want batteries that last longer when it's cold outside, right? So that we can have better range. We want batteries that can actually have a really long life cycle. You can cycle them for so many times, which is the equivalent of 1,000 miles, let's say, so that when you actually give access to the grid to integrate with your vehicle so we can decarbonize the grid, nobody really cares if their battery is cycling so many times because it's not going to degrade because the chemistry is so good that the life cycle is so long. These are the pressures in the real world that are forcing us back to the drawing board and actually having us innovate. And there's Canadian innovation in all those things, and that's exactly what we're identifying in this roadmap. Other things are like geopolitical pressures, like cobalt comes up. If you actually talk to anybody that doesn't know anything about batteries, they're just the first thing they'll ask you is like, well, I heard batteries are not good because like there's mines and Congos and it's like not really ethical. And it's not necessarily, nobody's denying that there are actual issues currently. But the thing is, those issues we're not stuck with them. We can innovate around them, right? And also, we can have cobalt mined here, which is what we're trying to do. But also, we're seeing battery innovation that's trying to reduce or completely phase out, conflict minerals or metals. And this is, for example, in Dalhousie University, Dr. Jeff Don has developed, a nickel-rich battery with almost no cobalt, right? So that's an example of battery innovation happening here. And the third piece is the environmental pressures or considerations. We want batteries to be more recyclable. We want them to have a lower footprint, because another thing that people would say to you, well, our EVs are actually better because they take so much to make. Well, they are actually. Even the dirtiest battery is still way better than internal combustion engine over life cycle. But we still want to make sure that the life cycle of this battery is really, in terms of emissions, as low as possible. And that's why we need innovation there. So kind of when we combine all those kind of drivers, this is what really is forcing us to develop the next generation battery. And that's where Canada is actually playing a key role here with all the innovators that we have in this country. So this roadmap is going to have three themes. One is on technology. So thinking about where is the technological horizon headed, right? So we have chemistries that are coming up, like if sodium ion went from being a very fringe chemistry to like something that is really, like it's already in vehicles in China, right? So where it's super cheap. It's not great for long range, but it's really good for small vehicles. And we need the diversity of solutions. Things like processes as well. It's not just about the chemistry. We can innovate in a way where we're using different processes, like metallurgical or manufacturing processes that use less energy or that actually is more effective or efficient in terms of use of materials. And then the performance, like niche applications. Like we want, batteries that work better for cold weather, or we work better for certain off-road applications, et cetera. So really, and then the second theme is the battery architecture. So what's the funding support that exists here to actually support battery innovators in Canada? What are the physical assets that are needed, and what are the skills and intellectual property strategies around that? And then the third piece, which is really the economic development opportunity and the economic linkages to the supply chain, is like, how do we take the innovation that we have and build homegrown Canadian companies that are actually generating value-added economic activity from these battery innovations? Excuse me. So if we look at the history there, we've had some hurdles taking this like major contribution to battery innovations to turning that into homegrown companies, right? But now with the investments and anchor investments that the government has been able to secure, we actually have a great opportunity to take the battery innovation here and anchor it in industrial activity, industrial policy. And that's kind of what we're trying to do as a key pillar that makes this actually relevant in the real world and generates the economic benefits that we all want from this transition as well. So to kind of finalize this, really, the roadmap is intended to be a navigational tool that really will help kind of guide the path forward. it will identify sort of what are those core drivers, both like for global demands and for the unique regional challenges in Canada, so that Canada's contribution actually matter, right? So this is really what we want at the end of the day. And then the roadmap will lay out the concrete metrics. What does it mean for us to make progress on cost? Well, it means that we have to bring costs down to this level, and we'll define what that number is, right? And so therefore, when an innovator in Canada is working on this problem, they'll know that they're on the right track. They'll know if they're close to hitting that target. So we're really excited to be announcing this. We're really thankful for NRCan and for the government for supporting this project and working collaboratively with them, not in terms of just funding, but really in terms of understanding what they're doing and what the rest of the federal family is doing. So we're really happy also to have the whole supply chain here today with this showcase that can really demonstrate, that innovation is part of this economic activity and the industrial activity that's happening across the country. And we're looking forward to putting this out early in 2024. And in the meantime, we'll be engaging with all of you and we're looking forward to hear from you as we kind of finalize this process. I think I took a little bit longer than I'm supposed to, but thank you so much.
Thank you again, Mo. Thank you, Parliamentary Secretary. And thank you so much to NRCan for your support. This is going to be a really important project. Look, this is not a conference, so we're not going to take up too much more of your time. But as I mentioned at the outset, this day today and tomorrow, when we meet with members of Parliament, is a collaboration between Accelerate and other organizations in this space. And what I thought I would do is invite representation from those collaborators up for a lightning round. And by lightning, I mean quick. And the reason for that is I want people to articulate a little bit what they think success looks like for this industry in this country. So we all have different versions of success. I think a baseline is jobs, growth, industrial activity, economic activity. But what does that mean? What are we aiming for? So I'm going to invite, Natika Sate, who is the chair of Electric Mobility Canada, Sean DeVries, who is the ED of BMAC, Foutini Kusavlis, who is vice president at the Mining Association, and Ian London, who is the ED of C2M2A. I'm going to try to get this mic out of here. That works. Okay. So I'm going to switch it up. Oh, wait, David Adams is here. David Adams, ladies and gentlemen, has just won a prize. David Adams is the president of the Global Automakers of Canada, another collaborator, and was fighting traffic from Montreal today. So thank you, David. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask the two questions. Is this on? Yeah. The two questions, I'm going to compress them into one, okay? The two questions into one are, what does success mean for you in this supply chain and in this industry for Canada? Let's call it by 2040. I know, Ian, you wanted 2050 because it would align with your 100th birthday, but 2040. What does it mean, and what do we need to do to get there, okay? And each of you represent different constituencies, different members, and different parts of this economy. So you'll have different answers, and that's fine. But I would like to hear what you have to say, and then we'll get back and have a beer. Fatina, you're first.
Great. Well, thank you. Hi, everyone. All right. Okay. So I understand it's we're standing between you and the next drink. So lightning round. I represent the Mining Association of Canada, an upstream part of the value chain, and hearing a lot about battery electric vehicles, walking the showcase today, seeing transportation vehicles such as buses and boats and very many other interesting I'd say modes of transportation that is going to be, used with battery electric, with batteries. So we all hear the numbers, right? The sheer quantities of minerals and metals that are needed for the energy transition alone. And I don't want to get them wrong, so let me read it out quickly to you. So a 500% increase in the production of minerals according to the World Bank, with EVs and battery storage driving about half of the mineral demand growth from clean electricity technologies until 2040, and primarily due to a soaring battery materials demand. Earlier this year, the IEA reported that in Europe alone, EV sales increased by 15% in 2022. Last month, however, it was further reported that year-over-year EV sales in Europe in 2023 increased over 50%, in Belgium over 200%. Growth of EV sales in North America is slower, but at just under 50%, it's not insignificant. So why does this matter? Why does it matter for mining? Because the average EV battery contains roughly 185 kilograms of minerals, including lithium, cobalt, nickel, manganese, graphite, copper, iron, and aluminum. So that's a lot of mining. That's a lot of projects. And that means we need to be able to move projects through the regulatory and permitting part of our ecosystem. So probably no surprise to you to hear from Mac and from us to say, the 10 to 15 years that it takes for a project to go from discovery to production is way too long. And if we are to capture this, as we keep on calling it, generational opportunity, we need to open more mines. And how can we possibly do that if it takes that long to get through the permitting process of our country? So what I'd love to see, and my members would love to see as well, is that concrete plan that the government of Canada has committed to in the last budget actually be announced, unveiled, and how we're able to get through the process in a more timely fashion, not taking environment in sort of, not sacrificing the environment along the way, but where can we find those efficiencies? Where can we move more projects through the pipeline to get to what you need to have in terms of that value chain further downstream? So I'm going to stop there because Matthew, you said it's a lightning round, but I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards as well.
Thank you. So with the Battery Metals Association, we go beyond electric vehicles, of course. So I think for 2040, and as we look at that in the far future, it seems to be, with what we're talking about in terms of building and investments and development, it's something that's going to have to happen now and quickly because there's a lot that needs to happen. And so I think for us, 2040, what it would look like is having 100% sustainable, reliable energy sources right across the board. So from the grid to our homes to our industry, and of course all the vehicles on the road, whether EVs or buses and trucks and all these other things that we see. So in order to be able to do that, I think the important thing is going to be that we have a reliable source of power. And so we've also got the battery backup that goes along with that. And we've got systems in place. And I hope I didn't steal yours, but we've...
Close it.
Is that
Keep your
good?
mic closer. It's perfect.
Yeah. So we definitely need these battery systems as well that go along with this green grid and energy system. Lots of investment needs to happen. Lots of development needs to happen now. I think that's it. I think that's where we see the vision.
You can take your $20 from me later for getting that message across. Okay, so the thing is, I'm speaking third. So a lot of the good points have already been spoken. So I do wear the hat of EMC's chair. So a lot of our Electric Mobility Canada members, I'd want to speak on their behalf, but my day job is at a utility. So which is why the whole thing about the underlying gas pumps of tomorrow being clean is very close to my heart. But today, to dream of 2040 future, I'd like to just wear the hat of an average Canadian. Today, when we speak to our children, they are shocked that their grandparents could be driving in a car without seatbelts. They're also shocked that their teacher could smoke in their classroom, right? I hope in 2040, the kids are shocked that we were driving cars that were polluting the roads, that the kids of their age used to drive around in a school bus for over an hour a day that had so high pollution. I hope to God that we put an end to all those unintended consequences that came out of the third industrial revolution. And how do we get there? I'm going to say there are enough people on this panel to talk about the supply side, so I'm going to focus on the demand side. End of the day, at the heart of this change is the customer. So incentive is key. Incentive is the carrot to take them over, to make them lure them to the change. And then the next thing is the awareness and education, the training and education that comes with it. EMC recently did a study, over 1,500 Canadians. So we didn't tell them anything. We asked them, you don't have an EV, what's your probability? Would you buy your next car as an electric vehicle? 43% of Canadians told us that they would consider the next car as an EV. So electric vehicle was on their shopping list, right? And then we started, by way of the survey, to educate them on the incentives, on the ZEV mandates, on where the world was going. And then at the end of that very short survey, so imagine a very short, quick burst of education and awareness, 63% said they would buy an EV. What a low-hanging fruit. But just giving out incentives is not enough. You got to be able to educate and create awareness, create training. And of course, you got to need the regulations to go hand in hand, the ZEV mandates. And our EMC members tell us that medium and heavy duty mandate needs to come faster, be accelerated, no pun intended. And then last but not the least, you got to have the infrastructure. And as part of the infrastructure is a clean grid at the back end. We are expecting the grid to grow 3 times to be that clean solution so that we can get out of imported fuel, get into domestic fuel. Think of what that will do for our economic growth. It'll also help us keep the 2040 and beyond, keep the youngsters. By the way, our youngsters are our biggest resource as we are a declining birth rate economy. So we really need to make sure they remain engaged into Canada. And if you give them a purposeful life, you give them a clean and green economy that not only are they proud of, so not just shovel ready, but shovel worthy. And you help them stay grounded in Canada. So that's my dream for 2040. And I think as an economy, as all the players come together, it's within our, we can make it happen.
A hard act to follow. I'll be 90, not 100, but I'm gonna challenge you on a couple of words. I don't believe in dreaming. I believe in doing. And we have that opportunity. I also applaud the federal government and others working on batteries. But let's be honest, it takes more than batteries to build a vehicle. It's more than energy service. I need to lightweight those vehicles. I need to have the semiconductors which held up the automotive industry for many years. In some cases, we won't be driving at all. They won't be buying an EV. It'll be different forms of transportation. Canadians, 2040, 2050 or whatever, we got to get on with processing. It should be Canadian value-added products going into those supply chains and building those vehicles or other technologies. We may not have to drive if I could Zoom and better medical care remotely. I don't need it. And that's not to just downplay the EV market. This is where the world's going. And it's multiple supply streams. Well, what I witnessed today, and I think you alluded to, Matthew, was today the first time you actually saw from mine to mobility on the ground. Enough of silos, enough of, it's battery material, I need semiconductors, I got to recycle, there are trade issues, but we can do this. But let's get on with it. But 40 years, or 25, 15 years, God willing, 25 years, what are we going to do in the next 5? I want to be at ribbon cuttings. I've used that expression before. We could process materials. Yes, the mine may not be ready, but we can process other people's materials. That's what others are doing. Yes, I can import some. It's not a perfect solution, but we can build that infrastructure, and which would then encourage new materials coming into it and process those. We have immediate supply. We have recycled batteries. We have recycled magnets. We have light-weighted materials and aluminum. This could be done. So a little less on the dreaming. I have great aspirations for my grandchildren. I don't even want to know what's going to happen. But at the same time, we can do this in some shorter term windows, and today exemplified how we can do it. David, the mic.
Well, I guess what's left to say, and I agree with everything that the panelists have said, maybe with the exception of the ZEV mandate. But I think, you look at where we're at and where we're going, and in the automotive world, you'll see 2025 model year vehicles on the road early January next year. And you're looking at really only 15 years, which is probably about 3 model changeovers in that period of time. So it sounds like it's a lot of time away, but it's not a lot of time away. And going back to what Fotini said at the very beginning, if you're looking at opening up a new mine in Canada, 10 to 15 years. And just to echo her point, and I've said this a million times, but yeah, Canada has a great opportunity to be an EV leader in the globe. But it's only going to remain an opportunity until we get stuff done. So we've got to get shovels in the ground. We got to get battery production. We got to get processing in Canada too, because I think the last thing we want to is to get the mining done, but then be shipping all those goods elsewhere for the processing. So to your point, building the whole value chain in Canada, because that's going to add the value added and provide the ongoing economic stimulus for the Canadian economy. So lots to do. Let's just all get doing it. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. For my part, I agree with everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy your evening. Everybody will be here. You don't need to go home. Ask questions and network. Thank you again for a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow, but don't go home yet. Thanks so much.